function here, these lines of code from 8 to 11, fetch me an API and bring it back. This is the value of Angular. You don't have to go and write that if Ajax on success, blah, blah, blah. That's it. On success, what it should do, it should call a function which takes these 4 parameters. So this is an anonymous inline function in Java, which is one of the things I hate about JavaScript. It was very difficult to debug. And then this variable called scope represents whatever is going to be rendered on the front end with Angular. So you're saying in the scope, add an object called name, set it to the value of whatever data is returned and the name of that JSON object. So data is the JSON object that is fetched from this API.
So scope is like the document, or?
Scope is the scope of the HTML that's rendered. Okay, so let me show you what I mean by that. If I open the views,
That means whatever variables in this region you can access them from that same scope.
Okay.
The variables in here are accessible
Okay, within that page that was
within that scope. Yeah.
So scope refers to the page.
To the whatever, and sometimes in this case it's multiple, can be multiple pages.
Okay.
okay, so
Session
you see
maybe?
this name?
Yeah.
This is within the app controller scope.
Yeah, okay.
So this name is what?
It's defined in the controller, right?
Yeah, it's actually, the value of it is defined in the controller.
Yeah.
But where it goes is set up in the template.
Yeah.
Okay? So this name is here. Name. That's why it says Bob when you enter it. See this? Bob? That's the name. So what the API is returning Bob in the scope and
The scope is basically the view.
it's not the view. It's this. You see this app controller?
Yeah.
It's whatever is within this. So on one HTML template, I can have multiple scopes. Make sense?
From different controllers.
So now you have the routes. You have the route, and this route is basically fetching, listening on specific GET requests.
Yes.
And it then tells the application to load this view, and this to load the controller, which
Yes.
will, once it's done, it will load the view
Okay.
and give it whatever variables.
Yeah. So let me explain it to you. Imagine there are 2 boxes, 2 divs in your HTML. Okay.
Yeah.
And you give this div ID equal 1. And this div, you say ID equal 2. Okay? Okay. In normal JavaScript, what would you say? Document, get element by ID 1,
Yes.
HTML, something,
Yes.
right?
So this would be the scope.
Yeah. So in Angular, what you say, you just say, instead of writing this, you just go ahead and you say ng dash view equal app control, for example. Now, for the app control scope, whatever I render, it will only render here. It will not render here. If I put name here and I put
So
name,
it's DOM level.
yes, it's a DOM level.
Okay.
When people are beginning with Angular, they put this at the HTML tag.
Yeah, that's
So you're like, okay, the whole page is one scope. But no, you can put it on any DOM level item.
okay.
Okay, if you look at the template, I'm putting it at the div,
Yeah.
which is inside my body, right? And here is another div, okay, which is an Angular C app version, and this is app. So this app control scope is only within this div. If I put that name and I put it out here, it will not work.
Yeah.
It will just always say name. Make sense? Okay. So let's get back to our code here. So what it's saying is within this scope, which is basically within this box, if there is any variable called name, okay, set it to whatever the data returns and the name object there. Okay, remember, JavaScript is event driven, so this will only fire when the request is sent. Okay? Questions? Yes.
I have a question. In the hierarchy before we got into this.
Yeah.
It's an MVC, something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm not familiar with MVC, so there are some words I'm not getting it.
Okay. So, which, for example, can you give me an example? Like controller?
Like model, views. So you are.
Oh, okay. So let me explain it another way.
Yeah.
Okay, let me explain it a bit simpler. Okay. Almost every application.
Get the black, darker thing from the back.
Which way?
This one. Because it's not visible.
It's not visible? In every application, you typically have three things.
Okay.
You have the data that you're going to store.
Yeah.
Okay. You have how you're going to display it. And then you have how you're going to get it to be displayed. Right? So let's just write these three things down. Let's not give them any labels. Let's not give them any names. Let's just write them down. So we say there is data.
Yeah.
Okay. There is my display. How I'm going to show the data. Okay. And we need something in the middle here that connects this with this.
Controller.
This is the control. It controls basically how the data gets to the display. Okay. So this is the control. So the controller is easy to understand, right?
Yeah.
It's basically what controls these two things. Right? Now, because display is something you view, they call this view. So this is the view. So you have two of the three. Now, the data. Now, why do they call it a model? Okay. This is the tricky part. Okay. Whenever you create a database, any database, relation, Oracle, SQL, even Excel or Access, the tables you define, you are actually trying to represent something from real life. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
If you are having an address book,
Yeah.
one table is going to be a person,
Mm.
right? It's a model of a person. It's not the actual person. It's like I want to store copies of a person. So if I was to have one person, what would be the things I would store about it? And these are the columns,
Yeah.
right? So you would say, okay, I would store the name, I would store his age, okay, I would store his phone number. So this is in my applications world, imagine, in my applications world, a person only has these three things. They have a name, they have an age, and they have a phone number. I don't know how tall they are, I don't know how fat they are, I don't know what color their skin is, I don't know what color their hair is, I don't know if he has glasses or not. Because in my world, which I'm creating in my application, this is the model of a human,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
So you store these in a database, right?
Right.
So that's why they call this a model. Because these are models of objects that you're playing with in your application.
I see.
And this is the playing part.
Yeah.
And this is the stage where you tell them, okay, go do something.
Yeah.
Okay? So
Okay.
this is your MVC. Okay? This is the traditional MVC model. How do you shift this knowledge to the web? In the web, this is your browser. Okay? This is your HTML. Well, this is your, I'll say, server. Okay. You can put whatever you want here, ASP.NET, PHP, Java, ABC, XYZ, it all works the same way. And this is, of course, always your database, or let me use another word, data store. Why I'm saying data store? Because it may be it's a file. It's not a database. It may be it's a service. Maybe in your application world, what you're doing is you're taking tweets from Twitter and you're displaying them in a nice way. So you don't have a database, right? You have a data store or you have a data service, right? So if we can say another word for this would be data service. But the whole idea is this is the data. Right? So here you have your server, you put PHP, you put ASP, you put C#, you put .NET, Python, blah, 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 whatever you want, okay? In order for this to work, okay, in order for the browser to work, it has to talk, it can only talk to a server, it cannot talk to a database.
Yeah.
It's HTML, and it's Explorer, it's not Access or Outlook or something. So what happens is the browser talks, there's a guy in the middle here. This is your Apache. Okay, this is your web server. Browser talks to him using HTTP on port 80, or if it's secure, on port 443. Browser said, hello, I'm talking to you HTTP. It's my way of communicating with you. It's my language. You know how to speak it, I know how to speak it. It's the only thing we know how to speak. We don't know how to speak anything else. So what the browser says, get me something. And how does the browser know what to get? The user says, click request. So the request is always initiated by the user. If the user doesn't do anything, he is sleeping, he is sleeping, he is sleeping. Nothing is happening. Correct? As soon as you open the browser and you type something on the address bar, you hit enter or you click, that's when everything wakes up and does something. And this happens thousands of times a second. What happens is, at one time, on one request, only one thing can be returned. Right? That's why here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, you see how many? Because it needs to do all this just to display this simple page here. You got it?
I guess.
So, when we take the same concept and we move it to any other platform, you need to have somewhere to store the data, you'd have somewhere to control it, and you have somewhere to show it, right? In the JavaScript world, this is this, okay? And then this is this. Here, it's your view. It's what goes in the browser.
Right.
Okay?
Okay.
And we are using a data service, which is why I didn't I didn't open MySQL and start creating tables.
Yeah.
Okay?
Okay.
The next thing is I can show you the data service also. It's actually just an object. Yes?
Now, just to make it compile with the Django. Models is models.py,
Yes.
and view is views.py,
Yes.
controller is url.py.
Actually, it's a combination of urls.py and views.py. Yes.
But now on the views.py, okay, we are handling the logic
Yes.
plus the data, handling the data what to be displayed.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
But now the template,
Yeah.
what we call it? I mean, okay, view render the template, but
There's MVVC, Model View Controller.
model.
View controller. So the template kind of acts as like a view controller.
Okay.
MVC actually is from the desktop world. It's not designed for the web. It's for the desktop application, where there's clear separation of views, controllers, and data. Because in a desktop application, let's take Microsoft Word, for example, you may have 5 Word files open at once, right? So each one is a view. It's the same controller controlling both, but because the desktop is multi-threaded, you have to have this distinction. In the web, it's a mix and match situation. Now, if someone might say, hey, I have JavaScript in my HTML, does that make it a controller? Not necessarily. You know?
Okay, so just so what's happening with the second div? It's saying ng-view.
Yeah.
So ng controller is clear. It's
Yes,
basically
this is just a view. This is just a view. It's not a controller.
So Why do we need to put it in Angular?
Because we're gonna render this app version.
Why not render it, the typical way?
Because we cannot render anything unless we have an Angular wired into it, and the way to wire into it is either use a view or a controller.
So what's inside NGView? Just the content?
It's just a tag. It's just like
HTML?
this.
Just HTML?
It's this. You see, do you know about partials?
Yeah. So it's a partial.
It's a partial. It's a partial.
So why not just write it within, the express way?
Because if you don't need to render it, you don't need to pull it up. It's to load, it's to reduce the traffic on there. I'm gonna always be showing it. So why are you sending all that to the browser? This is the partial. So since you asked me about it,
It's like JSON get content.
partial. Any questions? I've
No.
covered a lot of stuff,
Clear.
short amount of time. For people who are new, might be like, sure. Like I said, there's no shortcut, there's no magic bullet for programming. You have to do the work, you will fail, you will curse. Hopefully you will not do what I did, which is when I was learning, I got so angry, I slammed the laptop lid like that, and it broke the screen. And the screen back then cost like 6,000 reals, Saudi. Laptop itself was 7,000 reals. So my father was like, that's about it, use a desktop. Okay?
So don't get a Retina MacBook because the screen itself to 270 KD.
So MacBook